Now in the Zelda universe, there are a couple of items that were either made by gods or left behind by them that had a huge impact on the world, numerous times even. Think of things like the triforce that can grant any wish, the master sword which can defeat any form of evil, and the Ocarina of Time which allowed you to manipulate time itself. However, what would have happened if the power of the last artifact that I mentioned never existed in the entire franchise, being seen in none of the games at any point? Well, it would probably have some interesting effects on the series. So, let's dive in to find out what exactly would be different. Now, as we all know, the weird time travel shenanigans started in the first 3D game of the franchise, Ocarina of Time. Here, this whole mechanic is completely irrelevant in the beginning, but around the halfway point of the game, all of this changes. In the beginning, you're tasked with looking for the princess to stop evil that has been haunting your dreams. And in order to achieve this, you have to collect certain stones from all the races of the land, which involves a lot of dungeon crawling, of course. Now, when Link returns to Hyrule Castle with all the spiritual stones he needs to access the Master Sword to stop Ganondorf, he sees something strange. His nightmare becomes reality right in front of his eyes, as Ganondorf attacks Hyrule in an attempt to steal the Ocarina of Time, and Princess Zelda was forced to flee because of this. And so she throws the Ocarina that Link needs into the moat as she passes by, giving him the chance to get the Master Sword, enter the Sacred Realm, and retrieve the Triforce. He grabs it, learns the Song of Time in order to access the Master Sword, and goes there immediately. He opens the door and draws the blade, unlocking the gateway to the Sacred Realm. But, despite the Master Sword accepting him as its wielder, it seals him away in the Sacred Realm, locking him in there for a very long time, all while Ganondorf takes over, and 7 years later he comes back, being able to do things in his new future, and the past he left behind. This was the first instance of time travel in the series, and in the end, this resulted in the well-known timeline split, which looks like this. There's a timeline where Link saves the day in the future and leaves, one where he warns Zelda as a child and prevents it all, and another where he straight up loses. But what would this game and the ones after look like if time travel wasn't a thing in the series? Well, as you can imagine, a lot would change, since the ending of this game was heavily influenced by time traveling. Well, as you can imagine, a lot would change, since the ending of this game was heavily influenced by the time traveling. First of all, one thing that would be different is the world itself, because Ganondorf never completely took over Hyrule. He was in the process of attacking it after all when Zelda fled, so the town wasn't laid to waste. Yet. Now in this alternate universe where the heroes and forces of good couldn't use any form of time travel, Link wasn't held captive for 7 years in order to wield the Master Sword. I mean, it never really made sense anyway, because in the Wind Waker we see Child Link carry the Master Sword and then use it to defeat Ganondorf at the end of the game. I mean, So we would most likely see a similar thing in this different version of Ocarina of Time, and since Ganondorf hadn't taken over yet, Link would most likely be ready to confront him right away. So instead of going around to collect all the sages that power the Master Sword, which Ganondorf had sealed away, you're most likely going to hunt him and his evil forces down straight away, either defeating him or dying while trying. So maybe the downfall timeline could still be a thing. And the same goes for the child timeline where Link never goes into the future, although it would look different. But the adult timeline where Link actually leaves at the end wouldn't exist at all, since it requires time travel after all. Well, unless he does get trapped for 7 years and only the adult timeline exists, while the child timeline is not an option anymore because he can't travel back. This way he would have to defeat Ganondorf, who has taken over the entirety of Hyrule, and wouldn't go back in time, which would solve some problems, since Ganondorf would return later on. And since Link is there, the land wouldn't be flooded, which we see in the Wind Waker. So that's also an option, I guess? Anyways, it would certainly make the whole story of the franchise easier to understand, and would also get rid of a lot of plot holes. So in the end, Link hunts down Ganondorf and fights him in his less powerful form, because he never got the Triforce after all, you know, that whole thing with Link being sealed away and Ganondorf taking over for 7 years, none of that happened. So only the first phase would be seen in the game, which means that Nintendo would probably have to come up with a second round that doesn't involve him transforming into his Triforce of Power form, Ganon. Maybe some sort of sword dueling thing similar to what we saw in the final boss fight of Twilight Princess, beating him and ending the adventure. And Link is still a kid, so after these events he would grow up and probably play a role in the kingdom. Or he would leave, leading to the events of Majora's Mask, where a ton would also be different. But before we get to that, we need to look at an alternate ending to Ocarina of Time, because when Link pulls out the Master Sword, he gets access to the Sacred Realm and the Triforce stored there. So he could also just touch it and wish for the destruction of Ganondorf forever, which would basically end the cycle. However, this would make the game incredibly boring and would probably ruin the possibility of a follow-up game with Ganondorf, so Nintendo would never do this. But it's certainly an option for Link. Normally Ganondorf grabs it, however, since Link isn't held for 7 years, he can 100% do that. But what about Majora's Mask? The game uses time travel so much that it probably wouldn't function without it. Now in this title, Link travels to the land of Termina after he got attacked by a Skull Kid wearing a strange mask. He gets cursed by him and needs to return to normal, after which he's forced to save the land from a moon that's going to crash down in 3 days. Now in order to make this even possible, he uses the Ocarina of Time and its powers to mess with time to make it happen, resetting the 3 days over and over in order to free all the trapped gods that he needs in order to defeat the powerful Majora's Mask. However, all of this would become impossible when time travel is not a part of the game, since 3 days would never be enough. It already takes one full cycle to get to the top of the clock tower in order to confront Skull Kid and get his ocarina back. But is there a way he can do all of this more efficient? Or get more time to solve all the problems seen in the game? Well, not really. First you have to become a human, which could be achieved in less than 3 days. Maybe even just 1. However, there's no way to save all the 4 giants who are needed to stop the moon from falling. It all just takes too long, and Link could never deal enough damage to weaken Majora's Mask in any way. There's only one thing I could think of that might work. The light arrows. These are found in the first half of the Stone Tower Temple and are used to invert the place in order to continue through it. Aside from that, they are also useful for defeating the temple's boss, Twin Mold, and they are also helpful during the final boss battle with Majora's Mask. It's quite effective to hit him with these, which does make sense. It empowers arrows with sacred light that can easily pierce and destroy evil itself after all. We see this in a lot of games like Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, and The Wind Waker, where it's super effective against Ganondorf and any enemy in the game. So maybe this could be an option for Link, getting the light arrows as soon as possible and using that to take out Majora's Mask, or at least stop him from succeeding. He could possibly do this, although he would have to be really fast and nothing is in his favor. So there is a chance he will make it, but it's a rather slim one, meaning that Link would probably meet his end in Termina. However, it could be that he never goes there in this alternate universe where time travel doesn't exist. That's because Majora's Mask opens with a cutscene of Link leaving the land of Hyrule on a personal quest. He goes out of his way to find his friend Navi, who actually flew away at the end of Ocarina of Time's story. We have no idea why she leaves Link, and also why he would care about it. When she flies away, he doesn't even do anything. One reason for her leaving could be that she was only there to help out Link on his quest, since the Great Deku Tree told her to do so. But we can't be certain about this. Now, this is one of the reasons why he leaves after the events of Ocarina of Time. The other is that when he's there, Ganondorf could always access the Sacred Realm. So by leaving, there's no way anyone could even access the Sacred Realm and the Triforce within. But if Link uses the magical artifact to get rid of Ganondorf forever or hunt him down and defeat him, then there wouldn't be any fear of the Triforce being taken by some evil entity anyway. So that would be one reason less for him to leave Hyrule. Maybe he won't go anywhere at all because of this. So we can't be sure what would happen to the events of Majora's Mask. Now another game that has a lot of time travel is Oracle of Ages. Here so much would change that there would be nothing left of the original game. First of all, someone who plays a big role in this title is Nehru, who has the power of controlling time. And in the game, the villain possesses her and utilizes these powers to travel to the past to bring untold sorrow to the land. However, none of this would ever happen. Even the entire time travel mechanic, which is used constantly in the game, wouldn't be possible. So this title would straight up be scrapped, not being seen in any of the game's timelines. But there's one last game we need to discuss that's more important than all of these: Skyward Sword. This game would be drastically different because young Impa wouldn't be there to save Zelda, which she did multiple times. So to be honest, evil would have won here if she wasn't there and they weren't able to go back in time for shelter, which happens later on in the game. Girahim would have hunted her down and Link would have been too late. The only option they would have had at that point is finding the Triforce. If they got their hands on that and made their wish, they would basically win, since Girahim wouldn't be able to go back in time to resurrect Demise in the past, which he does in Skyward Sword after he loses. It would also save us from another timeline split, since there's a present where Demise is dead and killed by the Triforce, and a past where he was defeated by Link after being resurrected by Girahim. So that would be another splitting point. All of this wouldn't happen. To be honest, Girahim would probably win, evil rules the world, and that's it. So, as you can see, the world of Hyrule would change a lot without time travel. So maybe it's a good thing that it's in the series. Or maybe not? Who knows? Also, be sure to subscribe, click the bell button, like this video, leave a comment, naughty or nice, and I will see you in the next one.